Alright everyone, welcome back to the Tensei Slime Light novel recap series on AniMonolith. Continuing from the previous part, after the 70th floor was cleared, Carrion's next opponent was neither Apito nor Zagion, but Kumara. The battle on the 90th floor turned out to be especially intense. Kumara did not summon her 8-tailed beasts. Instead, she went all out from the very beginning. She had heard about the defeat of Adelmon's group, but it seemed she hadn't bothered to learn the details, and that proved to be a critical mistake. In battles between opponents of similar standing, information is everything. Knowing your enemy can decide victory or defeat. Kumara ignored that principle, challenged Carrion head-on, and paid the price. In terms of existence value, Carrion held the advantage. However, Kumara possessed the ultimate gift, Beast King Bahamut. Even so, combat experience would ultimately decide the outcome. As before, Carrion struck first. He unleashed Burst Roar, scattering countless particles of light that rushed toward Kumara from every direction. Kumara immediately took to the sky and activated gravity domination, bending the trajectories of the light with overwhelming gravity. Thanks to this, the attack only pierced her leg. However, this was not a calculated evasion. It was pure luck. That was evident from the fact that Kumara didn't counterattack at all, instead focusing entirely on regenerating her body. Rimuru wondered whether she could replace her injured leg with that of one of her tailed beasts. Since they could be revived with magicules, relying on them might have allowed Kumara to outlast Carrion. Carrion, meanwhile, realized that the same technique could not be used repeatedly in the same way. The particle state had a time limit and could not be fired continuously. Instead of pressing the attack, he kept his distance and aimed his weapon, the White Tiger Blue Dragon Halberd, at Kumara. Kumara hovered in the sky, staring down at Carrion. Carrion stared back, calmly weighing his next move. Their gazes crossed. In the next instant, the air itself trembled. Kumara dove, unleashing Nine-Tailed Piercing Strike. Carrion responded by pouring magicules into his halberd and activating another Burst Roar. This time, Kumara won the clash. The particle cannon dissipated, and Carrion's halberd shattered. "I'll win!" Kumara declared, rushing forward to finish the battle. But that confidence sealed her fate. How naive. Carrion's muttered words came only after Kumara's heart had already been destroyed. Although his weapon had shattered, it had not dispersed. Carrion manipulated the fragments with his will, turning them into particles that pierced Kumara from behind. The match was decided. Not taking any chances, Carrion mercilessly followed up with another Burst Roar, completely eliminating Kumara. So, Carrion Dono won? Looks like it. Kumara had become so strong, it's hard to believe she lost that easily. That battle left Rimuru and Benimaru deeply reflective. Once again, they realized how pride and overconfidence could blind even powerful individuals. The idea of training Carrion Dono feels rather presumptuous now, Benimaru admitted. There were many things to teach, and many things I learned from him. Rimuru recalled a saying, teaching others is an opportunity to realize what you yourself lack. In this case, Benimaru had clearly learned to fight more cautiously through real combat with Carrion. Analyzing Carrion's performance, Rimuru noticed how rapidly he adapted. Against Adalman on the 70th floor, Carrion focused on eliminating the most troublesome opponent first. Against Kumara, he exploited her lack of combat experience. With this momentum, well, I guess Zagion was in danger too. Rimuru said it half-jokingly, but the thought lingered. The answer came immediately. The footage played. The battle lasted only a few seconds. Carrion attempted to act first, but before he could even fully shift into particles, Zagion smiled faintly, and Carrion's entire body was sliced apart in an instant. An instant kill. What exactly is Zagion? Benimaru chuckled. To be honest, it's almost a miracle that I was able to beat him. If I tried now, I don't think I could win. Benimaru hated losing. If he said something like that, then Zagion truly was an exceptional existence. Had Zagion fallen here, Rimuru would have needed to re-examine Tempest's entire defensive structure. Thankfully, that scenario was never close to happening. Unlike others who grew complacent with increased power, Zagion was relentlessly strict with himself. Despite achieving his most flawless victory yet, he showed no pride at all. He said, "This isn't even close to Rimuru-sama," Benimaru added. Hearing that, Rimuru couldn't help but wonder, is Zagion trying to surpass me? And with that, Carrion's challenge came to an end. As for Frey, Benimaru reported that she had defeated Adelman and his group with ease. The result was so unexpected that even Rimuru was surprised. He had assumed that Frey could defeat Adelman in a one-on-one battle, but against Adelman, Wenti, and Albert together, the odds should have favored them. However, after watching the footage, Rimuru immediately understood why Frey had won. The reason was simple. They were completely incompatible. Frey activated magic interference, creating an anti-magic field with a radius of roughly 50 meters around her body. Within this area, the movement of magicules was entirely blocked. Because the interference wave was stronger than even that of Charybdis, it completely nullified Adelman's trump card, the Necronomicon. With their magic-based offense shut down, Adelman's entire battle formation collapsed, allowing Frey to dictate the pace of the fight. Furthermore, Frey possessed divinity. Since divinity is a trait exclusive to spiritual life forms that have surpassed their natural lifespan, Rimuru was not surprised that she could compete with Adelman's ultimate gift. In fact, he even suspected that Frey might have already awakened an ultimate skill of her own. Adelman attempted to adapt by switching to Holy Magic, Holy Cannon, but it was far from decisive. Because Frey could fly, she easily evaded the attacks with minimal effort. She then closed the distance on Wenti, who was acting as the group's shield, and seized her with her claws. Frey's claws were especially dangerous. They disrupted the flow of magicules within the body, making them a natural enemy of monsters. Once caught, it was as if all skills in magic were completely sealed. Rimuru judged them to be a threat on the mythical level. "If I didn't know about that in advance, even I might have been in danger," Rimuru remarked. Benimaru laughed, pointing out that Rimuru could escape using clone, though even Carrion had admitted that escaping Frey's grasp was nearly impossible. For Adelman's group, resisting was simply not an option. With Wenti destroyed from within and forced out of the battlefield, Frey switched to a long-range strategy. Since Adelman's group could no longer fly freely, they were subjected to one-sided aerial attacks. Albert, growing impatient, leapt into the air to strike Frey, but that was exactly what she had been waiting for. True to her title as the Sky Queen, Frey easily overwhelmed him as well. Left alone, Adelman had no path to victory and was forced to concede defeat. After that, Frey advanced to her next opponent, Kumara. According to Benimaru, the two were nearly equal in raw power, but Kumara lacked divinity. Moreover, Frey's superior combat experience gave her the edge. Although Frey often referred to herself as the weakest of the 10 demon lords, Rimuru now believed that this was nothing more than modesty. The battle lasted 3 full days, with both fighters giving everything they had. While it could be called a draw in spirit, the actual winner was Frey. Benimaru stated that he had learned a great deal from watching the fight, namely that while indomitable will is important, intelligence ultimately decides victory. Kumara's defeat came from misjudging Frey's remaining strength. Rimuru decided to watch the footage later, planning to process the 3 days' worth of data using thought acceleration. When asked whether Frey had challenged Zeijin, Benimaru clarified that she had instead fought Apito. As fellow aerial combatants who took pride in their speed and flight, the match was inevitable. The battle was intense, but in the end, Frey won decisively. Rimuru felt that Apito deserved praise for her strong performance rather than criticism. With this, Rimuru gained a clear understanding of Frey's true strength, as well as the shortcomings of his own subordinates. For Adelman's group, the consecutive defeats were surely a harsh shock, but Rimuru hoped they would use this experience to grow stronger in the future. He was also grateful to Carrion and Frey, and acknowledged that Ramirez had played a major role as well, resolving to thank her properly later. Turning to more immediate matters, Rimuru entrusted Sare and his group to Benimaru's supervision. Like the others, they were sent to challenge the dungeon. However, just as Rimuru predicted, Sare was unable to defeat Adelman's group. Albert alone was more than enough to stop him. As a result, Sare and his team were reassigned to train under Apito, bringing the recent wave of dungeon trials to a close. And the video ends here. Let's follow the rest of the story in the next video. Thank you for listening, goodbye, and see you in the next video.